All right, for today's financial wisdom, I've got a really good one. How much money do you need to have saved before you move out? Let's say you've been living in your parents' home, enjoying them for as long as you can, and now neither of you can stand each other anymore. So how much money do you need to have saved up so that you can move out and finally be on your own 2 feet? And the question is great because it covers a lot of ground. Now, I'm operating under the assumption that you've already been saving up and socking away a little bit. That hopefully you've been trying to put together a financial game plan and budget your money and whatnot. If not, those are the things that you need to be doing. And by the way, before you go all worrying about getting out of your parents' home, you better make sure that you started building some credit, just like I've talked about in a previous video as well. Because a lot of apartment complexes are now running a credit check before they rent to you. Just something to keep in mind. Your credit score can also impact your insurance costs, but that's a different subject altogether. We'll stay on the task at hand. How much money do you need to have saved up before you move out and get on your own? Well, to start with, you want to keep in mind that your housing costs should never be more than 1/3 of your net income. So when it comes to looking at apartments and things of that nature, when you're trying to figure out what your budget is, whatever your take-home pay is, whatever your net pay is, 1/3 of that, no more than 1/3, is what it should take to pay your rent each month. So, for instance, if your job is paying you $4,000 a month, am I passing my thing already? Oh well. If your job is paying you $4,000 a month, then your net would be around $3,000 a month. And of that, your budget for your apartment or whatever would be $1,000 a month. And that's only a portion of what you're worried about. A lot of people know, I've got to, be able to pay my rent each month, but they forget to consider things like, is the electric and the water and the trash and the sewer and everything, is all that included in the cost of the apartment, or any of those utilities separate? Do you like to play games and watch cable? Because most of the time your cable or internet is not included in your apartment cost. And then there's the big one that everybody overlooks. The fact that they like to eat. And when you're living at home with mom and dad, mom's making dinner every night, or dinner somehow magically appears on the table, or whatever. Have you bothered to learn how to cook? Because if not, going out to eat every night, getting pizza and stuff, gets to be crazy expensive in no time at all. You'll find your food budget being about $200 or more per week if you're eating out all the time. And so those are a few of the things that you've got to consider. I had this conversation with my kids, and they were doing a lot of things right. They were trying to budget their funds. They were trying to set aside money. They were trying to actually get their investments off the ground. They were doing a bit of dollar cost averaging because they didn't have a huge chunk of change to invest in the beginning. And so when we started to look at these things, they realized, hey, maybe I want to put it off a little longer than what I would like, so that I could save up a chunk of money. If you're just looking for a dollar figure, it's going to depend a lot on where you live. It's different living in Kentucky versus living in California. The cost of living is completely different. Cost of housing is different. So you've got to know what it is for your area. You've got to investigate just a little bit first. But for just a general dollar figure, about $3,000 to $4,000 is a minimum of what I would expect you to have saved up before you start seriously considering moving out of your house. Moving out, of your parents or your grandparents, wherever your living situation is, to be off and on your own. Now, something to consider is two people can always live cheaper than one. You could share a lot of expenses, and that's somebody else that might be able to chip in on rent. Am I advising you to move out and move in with your girlfriend? No, that is not what I'm advising. But I am suggesting that if you could find somebody to share those expenses with you, it may make it a little easier. But then you have to really trust that person. You have to decide, is the lease going to be under your name or their name or both names? And follow through accordingly with all that. Oh, I'm passing my house. I wanted to go ahead and stop in and take care of some of this stuff. So there's a few things in a nutshell. Another expense that you've got to remember when it comes to moving out and being on your own is renter's insurance. Do not make the mistake of getting an apartment and not getting renter's insurance. Can't tell you how many people that I have sat down with to help with a financial game plan or whatever, that were living in an apartment and something happened. The neighbor below them, or caught something on fire, or the neighbor above them left something on there, their toilet got stuck or whatever, and their apartment got flooded. All that stuff is your problem, not the apartment complexes, not the property managers. It's all on you, and that's what renter's insurance is for. So if you are thinking about moving out, make sure that you're factoring in the cost of renter's insurance as well. Now, I know this is a lot of ground to cover, and it makes it seem kind of daunting, but it can be worth it. I understand wanting your own place. I'm sure that your parents want you out from underfoot. I bet they've got plans for your room, and they're looking forward to not worrying about whether they're going to have hot water for their showers and stuff. There's a lot of good in that, and it's good when your kids get out on their own, because then they come to visit and you appreciate each other a little more. But that's what I've got in a nutshell for tonight, guys. Is there something that I didn't cover? Have you already lived through this situation and have some advice to give to somebody that's thinking about it? It's been a little while since I moved out. And boy, when I moved out, a lot of these things were a big time shock to me, I've got to tell you. Thankfully, I had lived in a dorm a little bit, so I'd gotten used to the idea of cooking for myself and stuff, but it's still not quite the same as having an apartment. I didn't get an apartment until my wife and I got married, and hindsight being 2020, if I would have liked for things to have been a little different, for us to be a little more prepared before we in fact got married and got our own place.